Well, hello, and welcome again to the 2012fad.com. I will be your host for this evening, and my name is Charlie Bluehawk. Last night, we talked about cells in the body, and how I am often asked if I believe in God, to me, the goddess. Well, I'm fairly certain that Satan exists, and I mean, she must, because she's got lots of followers, and they're all doing really well, practicing black magic and doing evil and hurting us and becoming wealthy in the process and eating our children and having endless wars and hurting us apparently is very profitable. So I'm fairly certain that Satan exists. And I'm fairly certain that God, the goddess, exists. Because if Satan exists, then God must. Certainly our masters believe that God exists, and they're at war with her and want to take their war against God into the universe. After, of course, burning all of us into a cinder first. To me, it seems to me that you and I are like individual cells of a body, and the body happens to be that of God. And that you and I create God just by existing. As cells of our body create us. We're not consciously aware of every single cell in our body. We can't be. Just as the individual cells of our body can't possibly communicate with us. We're too big. We're too beyond comprehension for the individual cells of our body to understand. And yet we're part of each other. I think that's what God is. That we really are a part of her, and yet we're separate from her. I mean, honestly, really, by all the logic there is in this world, personally, I should have been dead many times long ago. But here I am. I'm still alive. Well, I exist. I've actually died several times and come back to life. That's actually quite annoying, because being dead is very peaceful. I was going to say I highly recommend being dead, but I probably shouldn't say that. I was probably just dead to a point where I didn't catch the bus to the next world, and I was just waiting at the stoplight, and I got gone on the wrong bus or something. So I can't actually say that, but it was very, very quiet and very peaceful. Anyway, moving along. Tonight, I thought we might chat about with the smallest effort, and how in my life here, well, my existence here, I've never looked at people the way they truly are. I've always looked at the way people could be. I always saw people for their potential. I never saw how they really were. I saw what they really could be. The problem is, no one I've ever met has ever decided to make that little tiny effort. I'm talking about minute effort that was barely noticeable, to turn their lives from not much to anything to magnificent. And it's my own stupidity. This has been a terrible tragedy for me, a lifetime of disappointment and, frankly, abuse. The simple truth is that everyone here, everyone you've ever met, can be magnificent. You can, but you have to try. If everyone here could be magnificent if they only wanted to be, if they only made the smallest amount of effort to be, how amazing they would be if they would just try. And again, of course, in my time in this world, I've never managed to once, not once, convince anybody to even try. Never once have I convinced one person to make that little, tiny, hardly noticeable effort to be amazing, the way they truly could be. And it's been a life wasted. I have wasted my life seeing people as potential as opposed to reality. Please never make that mistake. It's tragic. I've done it. You don't need to. So whenever I hear some poor soul wish that they could help the average Joe, whenever I hear some really good guy say, if only average Joe knew the truth, we could change the world together. I just sigh. And I look very sad and I say, no, you're wrong. The average Joe, as dumb as we think they are, Joe or Jane average, the average Joe knows the truth, at least enough to know that they're being lied to. They know. Something inside of them, the dumbest person you've ever met, knows the difference between right and wrong. The most psychotic lunatic you've ever met, and I've met quite a few, knows the difference between right and wrong. They know. But do they care? No. Would the average Joe or Jane, would they do anything to make their lives better? No. Would instead the average Joe, the average Jane, Jane and Joe average, would they instead, when you tried to help them, would they just pull you down? Would they take all that you offer, your money, your time, your love, your effort, and then after taking everything you had given them freely and with an open heart, an open hand, would they just take everything you've given them and forget you exist? Yes. It's happened to me more times than I can count. Of course, I never had millions and millions of dollars to lose, although I did lose hundreds of thousands of dollars. That was bad enough. But I've personally met millionaires who believed in the basic good of average Joe. Joan and Jane Normal, they believed that with just a little effort, with a little knowledge, average Joe could be amazing, and we could take our world back together. You know where those millionaires are now? They're penniless. They're alone. Abandoned by the very people they spent all their money trying to help. Because they never figured out the basic, simple truth. People are cattle. You can lead cattle to knowledge, but you cannot make them think, really. And the other thing you have to remember is that average Joe hates it when you succeed. Average Joe resents the fact that you've actually made the effort to make yourself better. In New Zealand, they call it the tall poppy syndrome. In New Zealand, you have to tell your children, do not be everything you can be. Do not be bright. Do not be outstanding. Do not be hardworking. Do not achieve. Why? Because if you achieve and you're intelligent, you'll have no friends, you'll have no job. You'll never have a mate. Your only options at that point are to flee the country, which is what millions of New Zealanders have done over the last 40 years. The tall poppy syndrome. Look that up and look up New Zealand, and you will see that the average Joe, the cattle, resents and despises and hates you because you actually know how to do your job, because you actually cared enough to make yourself better. Average Joe hates to be reminded that they're average. And they resent and despise and loathe you because you tried to make yourself better. People are cattle. They just don't care to make themselves better. If they tried, the world would be amazing. Would be an amazing place. Well, it's been 32,000 years now. It's not an amazing place. There are a few of us, but not enough, because average Joe doesn't care. Average Joe knows about pollution and crime and evil and starvation. They know those are bad things. But average Joe doesn't care. Even if it's happening to themselves, even if they're suffering, they won't do anything. The cattle, the 98%, want someone else to do all their work for them, all their thinking for them. They want to be led. That's what cattle do. All cattle want to do is drink, to party, to mate, and forget all about you. You know, the one who actually cared about them. Because in our world, in our culture, in our society, if you care, you are a fool. And I have to agree with this. It's true. You are a fool. I spent my whole life caring about the human race. Mankind was my business, from Dickens, Charles Dickens, from Scrooge. No, I spent my life caring about people, believing in the basic good of the human condition, believing that love was the single most important thing you could have in your life. I believed that love was the ultimate power. And all I have found is that hatred is worshipped. Evil is always the first choice. and that love makes you a victim. So where does the idea of basic good of man come from? From you and me, the 2% solution. But there are just so few of us. And we've spent so much of our time on the cattle because we feel bad for them, because we know they can be more than what they really are. But you know what? We're wrong. Cattle will always be cattle. I have to give our masters this one. You cannot make cattle different. Cattle will not evolve. Well, so then what's the idea? Well, first, we have to stop believing the lie that all people are created equal. Frankly, that just wastes your time. It wastes your life to treat morons fairly. Liars and cheats and thieves. You want to treat them fairly? Why? They'll just lie to you, rob you, and cheat you again. What you really need to do, just my opinion, believe in yourself. Just put all your effort into you. And if you're lucky, if you're really lucky, you'll find other people who appreciate you because you are putting your effort into you. And then you can share that together. And always, please remember the phrase, I listen to what you say, I watch what you do. This phrase, these two sentences, will clear the trash out of your life quickly. And you will, sadly, find yourself mostly alone all of the time. But that just gives you an opportunity to fill that empty space with reality, with real people, with love, instead of hate. Clear the trash out, because if the trash is in there, there's no room for anything else. Empty yourself out. Clear it out. Get rid of it. Here's a good example. When I was back in Hollywood, I had just escaped my tormentors at the ripe old age of 28 and had moved into Hollywood full-time. And I was really lonely. I was shocked to discover that the world that I grew up in, of hatred and cruelty and lying and pain, was now the norm of the country. And how the liars were openly running the country, lying and cheating and stealing and destroying. And I was amazed at the cruelty I discovered in Los Angeles when I moved in full-time. I was used to cruelty back out in the desert with the crazy people, with the CIA and U.S. Army street thugs, but to discover it everywhere now, I was stunned. And I had this emptiness in me. So I filled it with junk. I started collecting newspapers, just for one article, but I'd save the whole newspaper. Very soon, my life was quite filled with junk, with garbage. I literally had like 60 boxes of nothing but newspapers that I was just trying to fill this empty hole in me with, just junk. So if anything good might have shown up, there was no room for it in my life. And it finally dawned on me that my life was so empty and this hole inside of me was so big. I was just throwing anything in there just so there'd be something in this big empty hole in me. Old newspapers. Boxes and boxes and boxes of old newspapers. And I started throwing them away. I was empty again. But at least there was room for something else to come in. Nothing did, of course. But now I'm free of all of that junk. There's nothing filthy in me anymore. All the filth, whether physical or emotional, and it was always somebody else's emotions, they're gone. All that crap I ate at McDonald's, gone. All that plastic and left-handed molecules that pass as sugar, gone. So now I'm completely empty. Now I'm open to anything that comes along because there's room now. So again, I listen to what you say, then I watch what you do. These two phrases will clear the trash out of your life, and you will find yourself alone. But now there are opportunities. Now you're clean. Now you're free to think clearly and with a sense of reality you've probably never known before. Because the reality is no matter what potential you see in someone, unless they care, that's all it will ever be, potential. And most people will never even bother. They won't see a reason to make themselves better than they are. They just can't be troubled with it. So if they can't be bothered, don't you bother either. Concentrate on being the best you can be. Concentrate on being the best you that you can be. And have a plan. I'd rather you were here at the village with us, working with me. So raise some working capital, pool your knowledge, get the cash in, and I'll make it work, because I can't do this without you. Let's work together. For all of us here at the 2012fad.com, this has been Charlie Bluehawk, wishing you a really good day and reminding you, please, always keep that one good thought. The 2012 Fad is brought to you by Coffee and Blood, Love Letters Between the Dead, a series of 5 erotica horror novels about a fallen angel fighting his way back to regain his own soul, and how the CIA war against the human race, their black magic, captures and traps him in the body of a mind-controlled slave designed to hunt down and to kill their god, their Satan.